Hello, boys and girls. Today we are going to learn how to estimate sums. And sum is just another fancy word for adding, which we did yesterday. So we are still working with adding, but today estimating. Today our I can is I can estimate sums using rounding. And I'll know I'm successful when I can round each addend to the nearest 10 or nearest 100. So we are going to be working with addition problems, just like yesterday, but we are going to work on rounding each number in the problem to either the nearest 10, and then I'll show you another way with rounding it to the nearest 100. First, we have a new vocabulary word to go over, and the word is estimate or estimate. Estimate would be the word I would use to say like the action word, which is a verb. Like I am going to estimate this number, but this time I'm going to say the word as estimate. And estimate is a noun, so it's a thing. And this estimate is a number that is close to the exact number. So it's not going to be an exact number like how we solved for yesterday. We are going to find an estimate. And usually an estimate ends in a 0. And you will see what that looks like today. An example of an estimate would be to say, if I had 303 marbles. Well, if I told my friend that I had 303 marbles, they might look at me and go, oh my gosh, how do you know that? Like I would have had to count each and every one by one, to know that I have 303. But an estimate would be to say, I just have about 300 marbles, because it's really close to 303. And it's only, 3 away. So an estimate just means I have about 300 instead of 303. And hey, it ends in a 0, right? 300. Oh, and I said an estimate usually ends in a 0. So see how that works out? You will see how it works out with our next strategy. So I'm going to read a problem, and we are going to test out our strategy of estimating with this problem. The store sold 416 books and 783 bookmarks last year. About how many books and bookmarks did the store sell altogether? Notice how I underlined the word about in this problem, because another word for estimate or estimate is about. So I thought that was a very important word to take note of, that means I'm going to estimate. And I also underlined the word altogether, which means I am going to add these two numbers together, because altogether just means I'm going to combine both numbers. And I add to combine. Strategy number 1 for today is to round to the nearest 100. So we'll be looking at the hundreds place. So you'll notice that I drew a table for this strategy. And this table is separated by hundreds, tens, and ones. And I made sure that I had enough spots for 2 numbers, because remember that problem I read to you had two numbers. And those 2 numbers, remember, were 416 and 783. So I just put my numbers right in the table that I just made, and I made sure that I separated 416 by hundreds, tens, and ones. And the same thing with 783. I made the hundreds place a different color, since I wanted to show you that that's what place value we are focusing on, the hundreds. So I wanted it to look a little bit different than the other tens, like the tens place and the ones place. And now here comes the estimating or the rounding part of this strategy. So I'm going to take a look at 416 first. And 416 is, I have to think, is it closer to 400 or is it closer to 500? And when I take a look at, let's see, the tens place, oh my goodness, the tens place is only a 1. And when the tens place is 5 or higher, that's when I would say, oh, then 400 and something would be closer to 500. Well, this number, remember the tens is only a 1. So, oh, that's 4 or lower. So that means I'm going to round it down to 400. So 416 is closer to 400. Next, let's take a look at 783. So 783. When I look at the hundreds place, remember I have a 7 in my hundreds place. So that means, is 783 going to be closer to 700 or 800? Let's take a look at the tens place. Well, the tens place is in 8. So, remember what I said last time. If the tens place is 5 or higher, I round up. And if it's 4 or lower, I round down. So, 8 is 5 or higher, so I'm going to round up and turn 783 to 800. Next, I'm just going to add the two numbers together now. So I have 400 plus 800. And remember, I'm estimating not only the numbers that the story problem gave me earlier, but I'm also going to add them together to get an estimated answer or an estimated sum. A sum is when I add together, and that's the answer to my addition problem. So I have 400 plus 800. I set this up kind of like the algorithm, so let's look at our ones place and add those together first. We have 0 plus 0. Oh, and I know that's 0. Next, I'm going to go over to the tens place in the middle, and 0 plus 0 again. Oh, another 0. Last, I'm going to go to the hundreds place, and I have a 4, or I know that's a 400, and an 8. So 4 plus 8 is, well, I know 8 plus 2, if I split the 4, is 10, and then plus 2 more is 12. So I should have 1,200, or I should say 1,200. And remember, that's my answer rounded to the nearest hundred. Since last time we focused on the hundreds place, this time, since it's the nearest 10, I made the tens place a different color so that it would look a little bit different to you, because that's the place value we are going to focus on this time. So we have 416. Remember, we did that one first last time? Let's do it first again. I'm going to this time look at the ones place. And remember my 5 or higher, and then I round up. Well, that's what we're going to do again, but I'm looking at the ones place this time. So let's look at the ones. It's a 6. So, is 6 5 or higher? Yep, 6 is more than 5. So that means I'm going to round up. But I'm not rounding up to the nearest 100. I'm rounding up to the nearest tens place. So my tens place is going to just go up by 1. So that turns into 420. Remember, when we estimate or round, my ones place is a 0 now. And now we're going to look at 783. Again, I made the tens place blue, and I am going to look at the ones place. And I'm going to ask myself, is the ones place 5 or higher? Ooh, a 3. 3 is actually not higher than 5. And it's not the number 5, so it's not 5 or higher. It's 4 or lower. So that means I'm going to round down. Well, what does that mean when I round down? That means my tens place is going to stay the same. It's not going to go up anymore. So my new number, instead of 783, is that it turns into 780. Because again, when I round, my ones place turns into a 0. And I told you now that since we rounded down, the tens place stays the same. It does not change. And now we have our addition problem. So our new problem is 420 plus 780. And just like last time, it's set up as the algorithm. So let's take a look at the ones place first. 0 plus 0, I know, is 0. And then we have 2 plus 8. Oh, I know, that's a buddy of 10, right? 2 and 8 make a 10. And so this time I'm going to make sure that since 10 is a 2-digit number, I need to put the 0 down under the 8, but then I'm going to carry my 1. So my 1 goes on top of my hundreds. And then I have to add the 1 with this 4 and 7. So I have 1 plus 4 plus 7. If I break apart my 4, I can break that into a 3 and a 1. And maybe I could make the 1 on top a 2, right? So 7 plus 3 would be 10, and then plus 2 more is 12. So I have 1,200. Oh my goodness, that's the same answer that we got earlier. We rounded the numbers a little different, but we came up with the same answer. Sometimes when I estimate by the nearest 10 or the nearest 100, sometimes my answers might be just a little bit different. They might be close, but different. But today, they actually ended up being the same. That doesn't always happen, but pretty cool that today that it did. So remember, our goal today was I can estimate sums using rounding. And that's what we did today. We rounded to the nearest 10 or 100. And then I'll know I'm successful when I can round each addend today to the nearest 10 or nearest 100.